So today's workshop is on postmortem. That's going to be the focus of. So we're going to show you how to complete a postmortem for the previous competition if you participated. If you haven't, your previous project that you've worked on. For the agenda, we're going to go over postmortem. So this is a kind of like a look back on a project. And then we're going to go into a game design document. And this is more of a foundational documentation for a new project. And since we are in between competitions right now, it's best to go over both. After that, we'll go over task management. Once you create your game design document, it can be overwhelming. And the task management is a way for you to break it down into individual tasks to make it easier to focus on one thing versus an entire project. Now, postmortem, now that the competition is completed, many of you have a fresh project that you've been working on for some time. And if you didn't create one for the competition, you can use your most recent project that you've worked on. But it doesn't matter if you submitted it. It doesn't matter if you even finished it. This exercise is just a great way to send off a project or bring it into live service. So if you plan to continue working on it, you can still do a postmortem post initial launch. There are many formats that you can use. A postmortem is a document created by the project as a team or the project team. So like all of your team members that helped with the project. And basically, it details the history of the project, the positive and the negative aspects of the project. The goal is to look back, to learn from that experience, to grow as a team, as a developer, a designer, whichever position you're in. So with each project that, whether it gets released or not, whether it becomes popular or not, it's a learning experience. So we should take the opportunity to look back and try to grow from those. So even if you plan on continuing development, you can still create one for, like version 1. And then once you come out with a major update or, after so long of live service, you can create another one for that update or for the live service. And if you've opened up that documentation, the document is broken up into several sections. And then in the first section is the introduction. You're kind of just going over your team, you're going over the game, and then some intimate details about that. So like the developer, like they could be the team members' names. It could be if you have a team name, publisher if you have one. A lot of us probably don't have a publisher. That's more for like AA, AAA games, but even some indie companies have publishers. A release date, that way you have the actual release date. Any platforms. For us, it's going to be a VR, web, mobile. If you're, maybe building this in Unity, maybe it's PlayStation or maybe it's for Steam PC release. But for us, it's going to more focus on VR, web, and mobile. Again, you can put your team members down, how long the development took. So that includes like from day one working on a GDD before you even create the engine to release, version 1 release. So that's the length of development for this postmortem. Now, if it was for a post-launch update or if it was for live service, you would do like the date from the last postmortem to now. The budget, if there is a budget, you can put down how much. Now, this isn't really going to be like a public document, so it's more for internal teams. So like you don't have to share this with anybody. But so if you don't want to put budget, you don't have to. If you actually did spend money on it, it's fine. You can leave that out if you don't feel right putting that down. Development tools. So like if you're using Blender, if you're using some audio creating tool, that the engine, that kind of thing. Add your world thumbnail image. Add a short description, so like a 1-paragraph description of the world. Describe your team. If you've created a trailer for the video, I know if you did it for the competition, you probably created a trailer. So you put that here as well. And then any pre-production insights that you had before you created the world. So this would be like creating your GDD, any mechanic design documents, any just meetings or insights you had during the pre-production phase. And that's kind of like the introduction to what the project was and how it fared. It's like you could put down like whether it was successful in your eyes or not, but that's kind of like in the eye of the beholder. A game that didn't do well may still be successful. So just keep that in mind. And then the next section is what went right. And in this section, I want you to think about all the things that went right with the project. So 3 positive things that happened as a result of the project, whether you learned something new, you tried a new approach on a mechanic, maybe your Q&A and testing phase found like certain edge cases that you were able to fix before release. Those are all things that are positive. Maybe you chose a different model creation tool. So instead of Blender, maybe you tried Maya or a different one, and that worked really well. So those are all positive things. And just it doesn't matter what it is, as long as a team you feel it was a positive outcome. And then the next section is 3 things that went wrong. Now, it doesn't have to be 3. So for the last one and this one, it doesn't have to be 3 things. It could be 5 things. I would like you to try to find at least 3 things. But for this one, it's what things that went bad, negative things that happened as a result of the project. Perhaps that new approach to the mechanic, it just wasn't as good as your original approach. Maybe there was a feature that was released halfway through development, and so you try to fit it into the game. It wasn't on the game design document. Try to add it, and it didn't work. And so now you spent a lot of time, kind of felt like it was wasted. So, so that's something that could be considered negative. And again, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as your team feels it was a negative. And then when we go to the next one, just reflection. So during and after, I want you to think about reflections or key takeaways about the project that you had during and after development. So they don't have to be negative. They don't have to be positive. It's just like things that you can take away and learn from and grow as a developer. So at least 3 things. And, they could be that you would do something differently, or you wished you fleshed out a mechanic more, or you spent more time in pre-development or QA testing. So things of that nature. And then when you start a new project, you can kind of have those things in your mind. And then we're going to the next slide here. And this is a future improvement. So even if you don't plan on continuing development on the particular project, still try to think about how you could have improved it after launch. And if you are going to continue like going into live service or future updates, kind of like write those down as like future plans. And then I have a couple examples of postmortems that I want to share with you. So this first one here is actually Deus Ex. I think it's pronounced Deus Ex, the 2000 game by Ion Storm. So that's more popular game compared to some of these other ones, but it's a very good example of a postmortem. It's not in this format, but it's a good postmortem to look at. And so if you're looking for like ideas on how to fill one out or how to add flavor to it, you can use this one. This next one is by a indie developer. And the project didn't pan out. He spent a lot of money and a lot of time on it, and it just didn't work. But so this is like a negative outcome one. So you can see how that is different compared to this next one I'm going to show you, which is also an indie game. And so in this one is a very positive experience for an indie developer, like sole indie developer, who came out with a good product, or how he felt was a successful product. So we're not going to go over them right now. If we have time, we can look at them at the end, but the links are in the chat. That way you can look at them as you have time. And that is pretty much a postmortem. So the most important things is you want to introduce your project, as much information as you can, like facts, and then you want to look at what went wrong, what went right, key takeaways from that. And you sit down as a team and you go over this and see how you can learn from the mistakes, learn from what went right, your reflections, and put that into another project. And since we have another competition that just started, we have that ability to learn from our last competition and then move that over to the next competition. And in order to build that foundation, we're going to create a game design document. And that looks like, I'm going to give you another link here, which is the one I created. So this last link I just sent, this is a game design document. This is the one that we're going to go over in the slides. And it just kind of, it's a very high concept documentation, just so you can put your ideas on paper. And this next link I'm going to give you is something that Wafflecopters created. And that one, it kind of is the exact same thing, but it's in a different format. It has different questions, and like it asks like your motivation for the project, where mine doesn't. And at the end, it has a lot of good questions to ask yourself during the pre-development process. And then the middle two sections are more or less the same as mine, like go over the same topics. So you don't have to do both. You could do one, you can do the other, you can do a mixture of the two. It's just before you even create the world, I want you guys to really sit down and think about what you're wanting to make, because it makes working, like actually developing the mechanics and fleshing out the mechanics and testing so much easier when you've already put in the time and effort to create this document. So now we're going to, let's go over to the next slide here. Move this over so I can actually see that. So the first section of the game design document is the introduction, your world title. So this doesn't have to be like the title you're going to use when you release the game. This could be like Project Orion, and your actual game is like Star Hunter or something. It's just whatever you want to put down right now. You can put down whatever you want. Just give it something that you can call it by during development. And then you want to make that decision on graphics as soon as possible. Is it a cartoon? Is it realistic? Is it low poly? Is it stylized? You want to make that decision early in development so that when it comes time for your artist to make things, they're not wasting their time making it in the wrong style. And then genre, you want to hammer out which genre you're making. Is it going to be a cozy game? Is it going to be an RPG? Is it a puzzler? And it could be a combination of two. That's fine. You just want to get an idea of the genre before you start working on it, and your platform. Now, I know a lot of people, they want to make their game for web and mobile and VR. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with making a VR game. There's nothing wrong with making a web and mobile game. I know the competition, I believe, is more focused on web and mobile, so we're probably going to be leaning towards web and mobile. But if you also want to add that VR aspect, that adds time to development, because now you got to test it on web and mobile, and you got to test it on VR. So just be very mindful of that, because that's going to increase your scope if you add VR to your platform release. Now, target audience is another very important aspect. Like, who is your target audience? Now, say my target audience is like 35-year-olds. I could still make it an E for everyone or E10 plus game, but I'm not targeting the kids. I'm targeting 35-year-olds. But when I ask for a target audience, we're looking at like 5 to 7 year gap. So you have your teens, you have your young adults, your middle-aged adults, your older adults, and then you're going to design the world for that age group. And you could also then add, are they gamers? Like, not everybody that goes into a VR experience is a gamer. Maybe they're just there to socialize. Are they casual gamers? Are they hardcore gamers? So all these things add to how you're going to design the game. So it's very important to think about stuff like that. And then your world rating. You want to know if it's going to be 10 plus or 13 plus or 18 plus before you start, because that rating is going to determine what you can do in your world. And player count is very important, because depending on how large that number is, that reduces how complex your world can be. So if you want to have a very complex world, you're going to have a lower player count. And the overview section of the document. So very high concept. So describe your world in one sentence. What is the world? What is the experience in one sentence? And then your hook. So like 2 to 3 sentences, but describe how your world is unique and engaging compared to maybe a similar world. How is it different? How am I going to hook those players and get them to come to my world versus another world? And then the objective. What is the player's objective in the game? So what is the main goal? Like, if I'm here, what is my overarching goal for being here? Sub goal. These are the things that I do to accomplish the main goal. And then your moment to moment goals are the things you do to complete the sub goal. So an example would be, say you're playing Guild Wars and your main goal is to complete the story. So you got to complete all the missions. Your sub goal, complete the missions. Your moment to moment goals is getting to the mission hub. So you're moving around, you're exploring, you're killing monsters, getting to the new story hub so you can start the new mission to complete it, to eventually complete the main mission, the main story arc. So that's an example of an objective from a video game. Then you want to outline your gameplay mechanics. So this isn't go into detail on your gameplay mechanics. This is you say you have a sword and you want to be able to swing it. That's a mechanic. Maybe there's a way to upgrade the sword. That's a mechanic. So just think about the core loop and place those individual mechanics of your core loop here, so that way you have a place that this is core for my game. And then outline what your win-lose scenario is. Maybe you don't have a win-lose scenario. Maybe it's a soft win, like you only win by being on the winning side of a PvP kind of match, like team deathmatch game. So you're on the winning side. That's your win, right? You gain score, you gain stats towards your character. You're on the leaderboard, and maybe the lose is you weren't on the winning side. So they don't have to be hard wins, hard loses. They don't actually have to be like actual wins or loses, just like, how do I progress? And this is narrative summary and user interface. Not all games are going to have a narrative summary, but most games will have at least a backstory to the world. And you might not even make this player facing, but if you have an idea for a backstory for the world, like, why is it here? Why do I have to do this? What is the reason why, there is a truck flying through the air? I mean, whatever it may be, you can add it here as just like, so you have it written down somewhere. Environment. A 1-paragraph description of what the world setting is. Where are we? Are we in the desert? Are we in a forest? Are we on the moon? So whatever the environment is, write it down, because this will be very important for your artists when it comes time for them to design and do level designing. So knowing what the environment looks like before you start is very important. Characters. A lot of worlds are going to have NPCs now. So characters, if you can outline all the important ones, you don't have to outline all of them. Like if you have an NPC that just walks through the world, he's not important. He's just there. But if you can interact with him, maybe it's a shop owner that you can buy and sell things from. That's important. So you might want to write that down. HUD, if you're going to use a HUD, outline all the information that's going to be on the HUD. Is there going to be a health bar? Is there a stamina bar? Is it just a timer? Whatever is going to be on the HUD, you want to write that down. That way going in all the information that's going to be displayed on the HUD. Menus could be anything from like a storefront to maybe you have like a pause menu for doing a single player game, and you can pause the game. You have like a little menu that brings up some information, or maybe you created your own kind of quest thing, or a logbook, or a bestiary, whatever, depending on what your game. These are all going to be the UIs, the custom UIs in your world. That's not a HUD. And then text and information. So that's going to be like if you're using a text gizmo, just that has like, a text that says what this is. You want to know what's all going to be on there. Now we want to be mindful of how many text gizmos we use, because we all know that a lot of people just don't read them. So if we're going to use them, they want to be short, they want to be concise, they want to draw attention. And we're going to go to the next slide on gameplay features. So this is where you can outline and get a little more in depth with your core mechanics and other mechanics that aren't core but are required for the world. So your core mechanics is going to be, say we're in a game and I want to kill zombies and I get points. And that's it. There's like no timer. I just go around the world and I kill zombies. So the core mechanic is being able to grab a weapon, being able to kill a zombie with that weapon, being able to gain points from that kill, and rinse and repeat. That's my core loop. Other mechanics might be leaderboards or quests, or maybe I can upgrade that sword. You know, it's not needed for the core, but it's added, it's extra. And then in one paragraph, detail how the player progresses through that world. So you're not going to just want them to be able to run around the same map, kill the same zombie over and over again. You're going to want maybe places they can unlock or explore or find like new versions of the weapon or what have you. And then explain the social elements of your world. So how are the players going to interact with each other? Why should they interact with each other? So those are some important topics to go over before, because while you're developing it, you have these things in mind. Now, feedback is very important for any video game. You know, you have your visual effects, your sound effects, your haptics. So it's good to know ahead of time what things are going to require sound effect or a visual effect or a haptic. Not everything does. A lot of player interactions will want at least one of those three things to know that to tell the player you're actually interacting with something. That it could have all of them, it could have one of them, but you're going to want at least something for the player. And then our next slide goes over sound, visual effect and lighting, and then assets. So sound, your audio design. So the ones that you haven't added in the last section under gameplay features, you're going to want to add all your sound. So maybe your background music, any sound effects that aren't related to a player interaction, your ambient music, all the sounds in the world, VFX. So again, any VFX that's not related to a player interaction, you want to add here. So maybe you have like a twinkling star effect. That would be a visual effect. So that you would want to add here. A lighting design. So you want to outline all the lights that you're going to need. We're limited with how many dynamic lights we can have. So it's very important to know ahead of time if you're going to use those, how many. Adding a bunch of lights can also cost a lot. So you need to make sure you're profiling that. And then assets is just like everything in the world, like every rock, every vehicle, every weapon, every tree. It's just you don't have to write down like tree A, tree B, but if you're going to have trees in the world, say that you're going to have trees in the world. That way, when it comes time to create tasks, you can know, oh, I need to create a tree. I need my artist to create rocks so they can be placed throughout. And then the next one is very important. It's the wish list section. So before I mentioned that it was okay to come up with new ideas and features. So like you're in the middle of production and you've already done the GDD, you've already started developing the world, and you come up with an idea like, man, that would be cool. We should add that. Don't work on it yet. Add it to the wish list section. The reason for that is there's three priorities of tasks. You have core, which is priority 1. If your core ain't done, don't work on priority 2. Priority 2 is all the systems that aren't core that are required for the world. So your progression systems, your UI, stuff of that nature. If it's not required for core, it's priority 2. And priority 2 can wait. Get your core done, work on priority 2 systems, and then once priority 1 and 2 have been QA'd, they've been tested, then you start working on priority 3 wish list items. And the only reason I say this is because if you keep adding stuff, you end up what's called scope creep, which can kill a project. And we don't want that. So if you have ideas, great, have them, write them down. Do not forget about them, because we might want to work on them later. And if you have to cut a feature that you've talked about with your team and they're either priority 1 or priority 2, and you have to cut it, don't delete it, move it to the wish list. Never throw out an idea. It doesn't matter if your team likes it or not, just write it down somewhere, that way you have it. So once you have developed QA'd core and secondary systems, now we can look at our wish list. Now we can start adding one at a time, QA it, test it, grab another one, QA and test it. And the reason we do this is because if I start working on a priority 3 feature and our secondary tasks are done, and before you know it, I got 5 days left before my deadline and my secondary systems are complete yet. So it's very important to prioritize our tasks, our features, our ideas, and get priority 1 done, then 2, then our wish list. And if you don't have enough time, we can always do post-launch updates. We can do live service, and a lot of times our wish list items will get added then. So don't feel like if I don't get it in, I'm never going to get it in. We can always work on it after. Now we're going to go over to task management. And when we look at a completed GDD, you know, a simple game might be 7 to 10 pages. It is overwhelming. So what we want to do is we want to take our GDD, we want to break it down into individual tasks, and then it makes it a lot easier to digest. There are several ways we can do this. You can create a document like a Google Doc or a Word doc and create tasks and have people sign off on them. Or you can use a task management software like Jira or Trello. Or you can create a forum channel in Discord. I've used all 3 ways. Some work better than others in some situations. It all depends on your situation. So whichever serves you and your team best, pick that one. Next are task types. There's 4 task types. Now you can add more, but these are like the bare minimum task types you can have. So they are scripting, art, QA, and bugs. And each individual feature and mechanic will have at least all 4 of these. Because let's take the sword example. The mechanic itself has to be scripted. The model, the sound, the VFX have to be created. The mechanic then has to be tested once it's been created to make sure the functionality is right, it matches the GDD, everybody's happy with it, and then you can go to test. But when you test, you're going to have non-team members test. So people that weren't involved in development test this mechanic. They may find bugs, and they probably will, because people that develop a mechanic are going to test it in the way that they know works. If you grab somebody who never tested it or never developed it, they don't know how it works. So they're going to try to find out how it works. And they're going to find things that they think are bugs. So then you would take those reports and create bug tasks and either, elevate them to get them fixed. And that is all I have for the test types. Again, you can create more than these 4, but I would at least have these 4. Then the next slide is the resources that we talked about. Some common ones are Jira, Trello, Monday. I'm sure you've all heard at least one of these. Jira is a little more, fancy. It's got a lot of features, a lot of bells and whistles, where Trello, while owned by the same company as Jira, is very lightweight. It's very easy to use. And I'm going to actually show you Trello here. So once you create an account, Trello is free for up to 10 team members. So if you have more than 10 team members, this may not be the right resource for you. I don't think it's all that expensive if you want to purchase it. But I believe Jira and Monday are the same for 10. It's free for 10. But we're going to go through the creation process quick. We're going to, once you create your account, you'll come to here. We're going to hit create. And you can either create a empty board or you can create one with a template. I'm going to use template, and I'm going to go down to project management. And we'll just leave the title as project management for now. I'm going to hit create. And it gives us some it gives us some predetermined tabs here. They call them lists. We have the project resources, which is very good because you can add your GDD here. You can add any pre-development documentation. You can add any information about the project, like maybe your dev post, project, team site. You could add the actual live version of the game once you publish it. If you do meetings, I highly suggest doing at least one meeting a week. If you have a team and you're doing a competition, I would like more than once because it's not a lot of time. It's only, we got a month maybe. I'm not sure the exact amount of time, but so you might want to meet more often than that. And then this just gives people, anybody on your team can add a card and put in a question for the next meeting. And that way you have everything together. And when it comes time for a meeting, you just come to Trello and everything's there. So then we have a couple different tabs here. We have to do, we have pending, which I don't like pending. I like in progress. I know how to spell here. We have blocked, we have done, and I'm going to create another one called needs review. I'm going to put that over here. And the reason I'm showing this is because it makes managing of the tasks a lot easier, right? So you can keep these or you can delete these. So say, let's take the sword mechanic again. So I'm going to add a mechanic, or I'm going to add a task. I'm going to say script sword mechanic. So that's a task. And I'm going to say model sword. That's an art task. And then I'm going to say QA sword mechanic. So these are like the bare minimum for just one mechanic. You would have maybe create sound effect, create a visual effect if you're, it's like in Unity, and you could create your own particle effects. So, but let's look at our first one here. We can create labels. And let's say we're going to use yellow for all our scripting tasks, but we want to say put a name here. So maybe Bob is our scripter, and we can then assign yellow Bob label to sword mechanic. So when I come in, say I'm Bob, oh, this is my task. Now you can create multiple labels with the same color with different names. So that way, if you have two scripters, you can go in here, oh, that's Bob's, that's not mine. That's all, I can go to a different one. But when I'm working on it, I can just bring it over here into in progress, and then I can add like a comment saying, I started this task. That way I have a date and time and who started it in the comments. And then your project leader, we can have a conversation. Maybe the other scripter, maybe I'm running into an issue and I can at the other scripter and be like, hey, what do you think about this? And you can have a conversation about the task right there. And say our QA guy, he comes in and he wants to work on QAing sword mechanic, but the model isn't, so he's blocked. He can't do his job. He can't do the task because the model isn't done or the coding isn't done yet. So that's what blocked is for. So when you have your meetings, you can look at your blocked and be like, oh, okay, what's blocked? Why is it blocked? So maybe he put a comment saying blocked because, you know, the mechanic isn't done, like this coding isn't done. So then you go in your meeting, be like, all right, why are we waiting on the coding? What's the deal? You know, did you run into some issues? And then you can work on that. Maybe put another scripter on there. It's just a way for when you have your meetings, you can see the progress of everything. And then once a mechanic is complete, you move it over to needs review. And then you can get with your project leader, you know, do a quick get your QA, do a test, make sure that it's working as intended according to the GDD. And then your project leader be like, yep, that's good. We're going to move it to done. So this is just a very easily visual way of representing all the tasks in your GDD. Now, I did it with just one simple mechanic, but you would want tasks for every single mechanic. You don't have to do all of them at once. Like you could have like a meeting, like, all right, we're going to work on these mechanics this week, and then you would just create tasks for those mechanics, and then you could have a backlog. You can create another list. So what I usually do. So I'll have a backlog, and then grab it. And then I would have tasks for maybe phase 2, phase 3 of development in the backlog. And then when we're ready to work on those, I would move them over to do, and then whoever needs to work on it would know, oh, okay, I can work on this now. So you don't have to use Trello. You can use any project or task management software. You don't have to use task management software at all if you don't want to. It's just an easy way to show everybody on the team what needs to get done, where it is in development, whether it's blocked or not. And it makes meetings a lot easier to gather your thoughts. Thank you guys for stopping by and learning with me today. And thank you. Please